Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS. Now it's real time, sponsored by the Mill Casino.
Welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to join Scott Haugen. We've actually been able to wrangle him in for a couple of segments here this morning, and I got to talk to him about a couple of different things. One, of course, is I get the last week of our bow season here in Oregon. It looks like things are going to be a little dry, a little warm, not exactly what we want to see. But Scott, first things first, man, thanks for spending a few minutes with us this morning. You were actually out hunting this morning. How'd that go for you?
It was good. Chasing bandtail pigeons up in the Cascades here. So yeah, got back about half hour ago, and yeah, pigeons for dinner again.
Oh, you lucky man. A lot of people out there, Scott, are going to go, pigeons? Pigeons, let alone everyone. If you took the top 5 game birds that are out there, that band-tailed pigeon for me is 1, 2, or 3. It's right there. I mean, they are phenomenal, aren't they, Scott?
Yeah, they are. They're good, and yeah, they're tough to hit, and it's a fun hunt. Seeing big numbers of them this year.
Yes, it is a very fun hunt. I learned way back in the day in those tall trees, we were shooting 10 gauges. Because they are up there sometimes. Well, yeah. Scott, I know that yourself, you get a chance to hunt worldwide, and for that matter, probably 6 months out of the year or more, depending on what part of the world you're in. For us, though, we only get a handful of months in Oregon. I get my last week for bow season here in Oregon on the east side, and it looks like it's going to be dry and warm. Typically, that last week of September, we can sometimes see snowstorms up in the areas that I'm going to be above 6,000 feet, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen this year. Any advice that you might have to share for all of us that are going to be chasing elk and deer this last week of our bow season?
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. You know, we've had some really cool, wet mornings, even some rain here in August and early September in parts of the state. And boy, this, you know, I don't remember ever seeing so many big bulls killed by archers all around the West. It has been this year. There's just been great conditions. But yeah, this last week is going to be tough. Bulls are kind of just starting to fire up here. Roosevelt's, I have a lot of trail cameras out and have been doing quite a bit of photography for these things. And they were fired up pretty good earlier this week. With this heat wave that's coming up, I think it's going to be all about playing the wind. Remember, it's photoperiodism that really dictates the testosterone levels in both the bucks and the bulls. I'm seeing some pre-rut activity already in the bucks. I'm seeing a lot more bucks, blacktails, out in openings, hanging out, you know, till 10:30 in the morning, where usually they're gone this time of year. I think that's because there's been a lot of moisture in the hills. With the bulls, I'm seeing them, you know, chasing cows. I'm just not hearing and seeing the amount of bugling that I would usually see this time of year. And I think that's going to be a little bit tougher. Play the wind. You know, these bulls are going to be with cows. The bucks are still going to be in bachelor groups, you know, the mature bucks. So keep that wind in your favor and don't be afraid to hunt all day. You know, once those thermals stabilize and those elk are where they want to be, figure out what the wind direction and try to stalk in on those things.
Well, that led me to my next question, is playing those thermals. It being a little bit warmer this last week, and like you mentioned, and it's the same report that I'm getting from the east side of the state, that there really hasn't been you know, like a full-blown rut that's happened, although bulls have been talking in areas that they're willing to, at the very least. But with this weather that's coming, do you think that'll stall that rut out a little bit? Maybe push it to where this week could be good? Or is it something that might last even longer and work its way into the rifle season that opens up in just a couple of weeks?
You know, that I've seen that before, where it's happened like this late in the season, and then you're looking at middle of October. I've called in so many bulls when it's been hot like this in the middle of October. Rifle seasons in different states, and it's not that it necessarily delays the rut or the estrogen levels of the cows. You know, they're going to hit their cycle when they hit their cycle. But what the heat does is it puts a damper on bull movement and bull activity. They just don't like overheating, and they feel it. So they're not going to be as aggressive breeding in this early initial rut. So what you might see is if these cows aren't bred coming into a second estrus, 28 days later beyond their prime, whatever that is in your area. And so it might be a little bit delayed, but that doesn't mean the bulls aren't willing to play. So if you can hit, early thermals that are dropping, get into bulls when it's still cool in the morning. And if if it starts cooling down in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock, hit it good when those thermals stabilize, and you can still get a bull fired up.
Is there anything that you might think that we could try to play to our advantage? Either it be water holes, you mentioned thermals, but is there anything that you might think in these conditions, as a bow hunter, of course, in this last week, in these sort of situations that we're going to be running into, anything that we might be able to hone in on, or that you might think, okay, start here and really focus on it and just kind of take it from there, depending on what they give you?
Yeah, so water is a great place to start, especially if you're hunting over east where there hasn't been a lot of water. Water, wallows, if you can find wallows, that's obviously a gold mine this time of year. So when I'm looking for wallows, I'm not necessarily hunting wallows, but I'm looking for splashes on the like mud to see when they've rolled in the wallows, and then when they're what directions they're moving in and out of the wallows. That can be pretty consistent. This time of year, it's not uncommon to have 5 or 6 different bulls hit a wallow in one day, as opposed to just one bull dominating it. And also, we're getting into the 4th quarter here, so don't be picky. If you're looking for a big herd bull, you might have to settle for a satellite bull.
Yeah, as I always say, and there's reasons why I say it, Scott, you can't eat the horns. Okay?
That's exactly right. Talk to my wife. She doesn't let me shoot a bull, and this will be my 10th year. Once we ate a cow, it's like bull hunting's done. So you're right. It all comes down to what you're putting in the freezer.
You know what? Listen, I'm greedy in that sense. I like eating them. Okay, that's the whole point of things. And of course, we always kind of ramp this time of year for us bow hunters that we're going to be targeting elk, and that's the one animal that we're after. But in the big picture of things, I'm lucky enough. I've been able to take my deer with my stick and string for the last 5 or 6 years, and I would assume that this year might be similar. We've been seeing some decent numbers. But for folks that maybe have already taken their elk, you mentioned there's been quite a few bulls taken this year. Not arguably, but at least based on what I've been getting reports on, it's been one of the better years that I can remember, which has been killing me, having to wait until the very end of the season. But for those that may have already taken their bull and they want to still get out there and hunt in the woods and chase mule deer or blacktail like you've referred to, any advice that you can share there? Are these bucks going to act any different?
I've seen more bucks in the open. I scout all summer, and I'm talking blacktails now.
Yeah.
But I scout all summer, and this is, and I agree with you, with probably the best archery elk season throughout the West that I can ever remember for a lot of bulls falling. But I think for the same reason, some of the cooler weather, some of the dew points that we had where the forest floor was wet, all the fireweed was wet. It's the only time I can remember catching so many bucks that I'm seeing through scouting, both physically and trail cameras, where they've shed their velvet and they're still active in the daylight. A lot of them haven't turned nocturnal. A lot of them are bedding in the same area, using the same exact trails. So if you can pattern those deer can be kind of tough, but don't think that it's just an early morning, first hour thing. I've seen a lot of bucks that'll bed down low, and as those thermals start rising, they're going to move higher and higher up on these hillsides. You might cover, a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile before they get to where they're bedding, 10:30, 11 o'clock, noon, higher up on the hill where the thermals are higher, where they can get relief from the wind. So don't be afraid, to pattern these deer and get ahead of them, get ahead of those thermals and get ahead of the deer and wait for them to come to you. It can be pretty darn effective, both mule deer and blacktails.
That's great advice, because those things are going to be on the table, like you mentioned. It's been one of the best seasons this year for folks that have been able to get out there. So there's certainly going to be a contingent of folks that are going to be targeting deer right now. Okay, so when we come back from this break, Scott, I want to talk about something that I don't get to participate in yet. Okay, it's rifle hunting, right? That kicks off here in Oregon in just a couple of weeks, depending on the zones that you're going to be in. Although I do have my Willamette tag this year, so that could change things a little bit there. But I want to get some advice for all those rifle hunters as well. Is that okay?
You betcha.
All right, everyone stick with us. We've got Scott Haugen for one more segment. If you're getting ready for your upcoming rifle season, bow, elk, whatever, pay attention. We'll get some insight from a true expert like Scott.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. And by Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective.